The balance of power in college football has shifted. We got to talk about what it means that the Big Ten had an historic finish in the AP's final voting and what it means for the SEC and football in the South. What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time to watch the #1 college football show, please consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell if you don't want to miss any of the segments that we're trying to get done here, uploaded here, as we talk college football 24/7, 365 on this show. And we are fast approaching 130,000 subscribers. It'd be very cool to get there today. That's how close we are. So be one of those folks that help us get to 130 and answer the question. Do you think the Big Ten has usurped the SEC as the dominant conference in all of college football? I think there's enough reason to say yes on this one. Let me know in the comments below. So, Michigan wins the national championship last year. Ohio State wins the national champion this year. That means that the Big Ten has seen back-to-back members win the national championship for the first time in the 21st century. The first time in the BCS era, first time in the college football playoff era. Your two most money, most well-fed teams have won national championships. Add to this, it is the first time since 2004 and 2005 that the SEC has not had a team play for the national championship in 2 consecutive years. A lot has changed since Nick Saban decided to retire, not the least of which is Kalen DeBoer oversees the first 3-loss regular season for Alabama since Nick Saban's first year, 2007, and took a loss to that same Michigan team that beat the Ohio State team, that lost to the Oregon team, that beat the Oregon team that won the national championship. It is also just taking a look at the, taking a look at the AP Top 25, and you will see Ohio State has every single first place vote that they could possibly get, and it wasn't really close who was coming in second, except to say Notre Dame finishes second, which is their highest finished, I believe, since like 1993 in this thing. But what I find to be more interesting about this is this particular note right here, and I've been looking at it so that I make sure I get it right. It's the first time that 3 Big Ten teams have been in the final top 5 of the AP voting. And we've been voting in the AP since 1936. The top 5 goes like this. Ohio State won, then Notre Dame, which is independent, Oregon, which is a Big Ten team, and Texas, which is an SEC team, and Penn State, which is a Big Ten team. Georgia is in 6th, right? And then we don't see another SEC school before Tennessee at 9. Meanwhile, Indiana is a Big Ten team. And then we're looking around, we're going, there's Arizona State, there's Boise State, who had a top 10 finish, by the way. And we get all the way to the bottom of the top 25 where you get to see Colorado, right? I actually had Colorado at 25 in my way too early, top 25 to finish the season 2. I think the better way to put this is, I was actually talking about this with my best friend last night, is we were basically doing the thing that we do, which is, talk about football, talk about stack boxes, loaded boxes, what plays we were running in this instance or that instance, and trick plays or whatnot. And the note that I asked and we went to find was, when's the last time that 2 teams went back-to-back to win a national championship above the Mason-Dixon line? And it's actually a trick question. It's Nebraska, 1994 and 1995. You'll remember it's basically been the South since then, right? Those of y'all that need to look at the map, you'll see Nebraska is just above it. But I always am interested in what is above and below the Mason-Dixon line, because we're talking about the South versus the North. And the reason we talk about it in those terms of college football is because the South has been so dominant, right? Florida, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, LSU, Alabama. We start stacking these, and you start to look around. USC is south of the Mason-Dixon line, but it's not a southern school, right? Outside of them, I mean, it's really just the South. Texas is part of the South. Dead ass. Like, don't let nobody tell you different. But when you're looking at the southeastern region plus Texas, it's really been dominant. It really has. I mean, Georgia, South Carolina, Clemson, South Carolina, You keep going, right? Tennessee is in there as well. Oklahoma is in there. I find it fascinating that we're having the discussion now in the age of the 12-team playoff, because the 12-team playoff is allowed for teams like Penn State, like Tennessee, to make the playoff for the first time. Arizona State to make the playoff for the first time. There are teams that made the playoff this year that simply would not have made the 14 playoff. Matter of fact, we might be talking about Georgia, right, playing for a national championship game, or national championship, had the 14 playoff been a thing. Like, would Penn State have been there in the first place is another question. Would Notre Dame have been there in the first place is another question. Excuse me. I think that we're going to see tweaks to the playoff. But if Greg Sankey is stamping his feet, jumping up and down, going, I need more knowledge about what's going on in that room, it's because he sees this note too. The SEC has been lording over college football for so long that people forgot what it was like when the SEC wasn't as dominant, when the Big 8 and the Big 12 and the Big 10 had more to say about this. I think we're coming back to that point. I think we're coming back around to, because of the constitution, right, of realignment of college football, and in this new age of name, image, and likeness and salary caps, you get to add Oregon, who would have been a Pac-12 school, to this mix. You get to add Washington when they get back to being good. But, on the other hand, you got to add Texas. And if Texas is not there, you don't have a team in the top 5 if you're the SEC, which is a wild thought, right? Imagine what the headline would have been like for this if there was no SEC team there. And we were this close to that. We were close to Arizona State being in that spot, and Texas just being a top 10 team had Arizona State beaten Texas. Now, that would have made for a much crappier Cotton Bowl, we think, but Cam Scatterboo was a lot of fun to watch. And Sam Levitt looked like he could spin it. It would have been fun. Would it have been what the ratings gods had wrought? Probably not. But I also don't really subscribe to that part, because the only sport bigger than college football in this country is the NFL. Not the NBA, not Major League Baseball, certainly not hockey. We play football in the United States. And we always will care about playing college football because it feels like we have a direct impact on the outcome of the game. Our homes, like our home games, are ridiculously awesome because people show up and show out because I paid money to go to the school. My kids go to the school. I pay money for them to go to the school. This is the family. This is blood. Like, I say this all the time, that I'm post-firing. Nah, you have a bad season, you got to dig yourself out. You know why? Because that's my name. That's my name. Oklahoma, that's my name. Like, even folks that would love to tell you that I'm an Ohio State fan. Preposterous. I tell them, I'm from Oklahoma. I love this sport. I love this sport. I love this sport. I'm from Oklahoma. And you ain't seen nothing until you see what I will probably be like if Oklahoma wins a national championship in my lifetime. I should say, wins another national championship in my lifetime, because I've been living 25 years without a national championship as an Oklahoma fan. So I be suffering. Meanwhile, Ohio State won one in 2002, won one in 2014, won one in 2024. I just want one more. That's it. Michigan won one in 97. They got one in 2023. Texas be closer to winning a national championship now than Oklahoma because the window is closing or closed. But I do think that you're going to see Big Ten folks start to crow a little bit more often, especially as it feels like Alabama is back to being the Alabama of my youth. Before Nick Saban showed up to lord over the sport and really raise up the SEC alongside him, like Urban Meyer was doing something, right, at Florida, and Les Miles was doing something at LSU. But that's because of what Nick Saban did in 2003. Like, before that, we talk about Coach Spurrier in Florida. Tennessee, maybe with Phil Fulmer. All right, so a little bit different there. A little bit different. Let me back up off of that point. Say Tennessee and Florida were doing something, and then Nick Saban awakened the giant that is LSU. I'll never forget that. That's why I'm always stuck on LSU. A, Nick Saban won one at 2 different places. B, he looked around and said, where are all the good players? And good players is a euphemism for, well, if you know, you know. And they told him they don't go here. To which he was like, bull crap, they don't go here. and he started recruiting his behind off. And that's how you end up with guys like Mark Spears on your defense. You know what I'm saying? That's how you beat Oklahoma like a drum. 2 national championship appearances, getting our behinds kicked in both of them. Lord help me. Now, the Big Ten is going to make the SEC feel like I felt in those games.